Greetings, friends, querents, Tarot curious, seekers of all kinds. This is John the Grey Tarot Wizard, broadcasting from the Invisible Cottage near Muggleville in Mundania. This is the 1111 Wake Up and Smell the Tarot, Instant Tarot, just add your own question. Today we'll be taking a slightly different tack. I will be using the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is obtainable through U.S. game systems or perhaps through your own local metaphysical bookstore. And the different tack that I'll be taking today is that I'll be focusing, as I do sometimes, on a specific issue category. Sometimes it's love, sometimes it's business. This time it will be recovering from profound loss. So I'll be shuffling the cards, and the way this works the best is you suspend your disbelief. You play the game of what if this was a snapshot of your morphogenic field at this instant, as regards your question. So keep in mind that part of what I say will make sense to you, and part of what I say will make sense to someone else watching at the same time, or perhaps someone watching when this is archived in the Tarot Reading Wizard Service No Longer Live video page here on Facebook. So I'm going to shuffle a couple more times. I see that James is joining us, and I'll recap just briefly. Today, instead of taking individual questions, at least to begin with, I'm going to be focusing on the broad category of recovering from severe or profound loss. And this loss can be of loved ones, it can be of money, financial loss, it can be a loss of property, or it can be a combination of any of those things. So I'm going to shuffle a couple more times and we'll get started. Usually I encourage folks to type in individual questions, but until I cover this first issue, I'm going to ask that you refrain from that. All right, I feel like I've shuffled the cards enough for this process. I have cut the deck, and now I'm going to switch the camera. And we'll check in on Mojo, my psychic guard cat, hard at work patrolling the halls of the Akashic Record. Or at least that's the story he gives me. To the untrained visitor, he may appear to be taking a nap. But who's to know with cats? And St. Douglas Adams would say the mice are in charge of everything anyway. All right, so this is a standard 10-card Celtic cross spread. The first position is the You Are Here arrow on the map, or the lens you're seeing your reality through at this time. And it may lead to a discussion about how you got where you're at and where you may move from here. So 4 Swords comes up. And this is the Rest and Readiness card. This is saying it's time to take some time out to rest, reflect, so on and so forth. You see that the work is done. The polished swords are on the wall. There is one, however, handy on the sleeping area so that you can jump up and tend to things as they come up. The next card, Crossing. The Crossing card is Lessons Learned. 5 Swords refers to lessons that you've learned in the past, lessons you may learn in the future, and hopefully we learn from our experiences and our lessons so that we do not repeat the same mistakes. Beneath you, 4 of Cups, and it kind of reflects 4 Swords in the sense, if this is rest and readiness, this is rest and reflection in a slightly more conscious state. This individual may be meditating. This individual may be actually in the dream time doing dream work or doing lucid dreaming. Whatever he's doing, he's got his back up against the tree to ground, and going barefoot in the forest or with your back up against the tree to ground is a good first step to evaluate after loss. This is also the card that tells the story about having so much on your plate that if the angels themselves, as represented by this hand coming out of a cloud, were to offer you more at this time, it may not be the right time. In other words, you may say, well, I have all these blessings here, and the angels might as well take those blessings on to someone else. So that's one way to look at that. Understand that every time you do a reading, the meanings change slightly depending on the nature of the question you're holding in your mind. Also understand that, well, that's enough for now. Let's move on to the next position behind you. 7 cups. This represents choices you've made in the past. This position I see as the rear view mirror card. In a standard Celtic cross reading, they usually call it recent past. This would be distant past. This would be recent past. We'll get into timing elements in a little while. But this represents a situation in the near past where you had many choices in front of you. And there you are looking at choices in front of you. And the good news on this card is that you have many choices in front of you. And it's telling you that in the recent past you've made some of those choices. And the good news is that there's more than one right answer moving forward. So anyone that joined me late can certainly look at this link again. And at that point, watch the whole video in its entirety is what I recommend to anyone joining me a little bit late. All right, now, the world above you. This is completion of a cycle. And I would say it's a spiritual cycle or a mental cycle because it's above you. This is the position of thinking, planning, your connection to your higher self. And the world card generally has to do with the completion of one major cycle in your life so that another major cycle in your life can be started on. And remember, the main focus of this reading is recovering from severe or profound loss. Now, we're going to look into the future a little bit. This is the 8 swords. This tells a story about feeling trapped, perhaps, or not knowing the way forward very well. And sometimes this is a check digit when this card comes up. If you feel trapped, wherever it comes up in the reading, or if you feel like you don't know the way forward, then to me that would mean that we're on the right track. In any case, the key here is that the swords are not in front of the individual, and that if the individual could remove the blindfold, so to speak, they would see that whatever other issues they have in their life, as far as having their hands tied, they can certainly move their feet to move forward right in front of them. And we'll get some more information about that soon. All right, so now the next position is the self-image position. This is the Hierophant. And this is the card that comes up when the cards are asking you to examine your relationship with tradition, whether it's a religious tradition, a spiritual tradition, a family tradition, individual, private tradition, whatever it is. This is the card of tradition, and it tells me that at least up to this point, you have had a fairly stable relationship with tradition in your life. Now, the next position is the environment, or maybe how others see you. And this is not a court card, but it does represent being in a place of advantage. This can be you being a teacher or giving lectures. And it could also be you being an instructor giving instructions. You see the wands or the staves of those who are there watching this individual, or perhaps attacking him, or perhaps being there to take instruction from the major individual here. And that's how projective psychology works. With each card and each position, we try to extract meaning for ourselves depending on the nature of the question we're holding in our head. And at this point, it has to do with recovering from severe loss, and also the background issues that you know about in your life. And hopefully the cards will help to bring out some issues that you did not know about in your life up to this point. So this is good news. The next position is hopes and fears. The 9 swords is the nightmare card, people say. But whatever it is, it's about illusions. So this is the card that says, try to avoid any illusions in the future And remember that when you wake up from a nightmare situation, that whatever happened had no basis in physical reality. Now, that's not to say that any loss you suffered had no basis in physical reality. It means that in addition to whatever issues you're having in your life, do not let illusion cloud your thinking. And if you do happen to have a nightmare, understand that that's just part of the normal workings of your subconscious. All right. This is, by the way, the one good use I found for my undergraduate degree in psychology from Adams State University. It's tell a story about the pictures. All right. This is usually the final card in a 10-card Celtic cross spread, and this represents hope. If you were looking for the Holy Grail, you need look no further. This is the card that represents the Holy Grail in your life. Aces are good in any game. In the game of the tarot, they represent a new opportunity within their suit. This is the suit of water, and so it would be a new opportunity for relationship with yourself, with your family, with others. It could mean a relationship in the sense of a partnership. It could, going forward, whatever it is, it's telling you to keep your heart chakra open and to follow your own good higher self promptings. And it may represent a new opportunity involving joining a group or being making a good relationship with someone in any case. Okay, those are the standard 10 cards, and this video, of course, will be available for replay. Now, we're going to turn the whole deck over, the shuffled deck, and this is the position I call the hidden position, and the card that comes up is the Hanged Man, and this is about suspension. It could be suspension of disbelief, it could be suspension of issues in your life, it could be waiting for something. It also refers to the Odin story, which would be a necessary but voluntary sacrifice in order to move forward or to gain enlightenment. Now, the hidden position I see is the position representing something either coming into your life or leaving, and we don't know at this point. Obviously, anyone who's suffered a profound loss feels like they've made some sacrifices and probably know what some of the sacrifices they'll need to make in the future are. So it could represent the sacrifices already having been made, or it could represent a new sacrifice necessary in the future. All right, so now we're going to do a cutesy pie summary, but before we do that, and we'll focus it on recovering from loss, but before we do that, let's cover some timing elements. Now remember, I see the timing elements as through a glass darkly. I'll put out there the timing elements, and it's up to each individual querent watching to snap those timing elements into place as they can from the past or the future. And remember, hindsight is always much better than foresight. So this is 4 months. It can represent a distant past to you. It could be 4 months in the past, and it would be a good landing point for lucid dreaming, giving yourself the suggestion that you'll travel 4 months in the past to enter your own imagination at that point to cogitate and think about what was going on. Remember, if you perform this experiment, there are plenty of books on the subject of lucid dreaming at your local library. My library card has always taken me more places than any fool driver's license ever did. Now, as far as this landing pad, when you get back in your imagination, and it can be a wakeful dream if you wish, but I would strongly suggest you work on the skills of lucid dreaming as well. So you get to this 4-month period, and what will you do? You will be looking for omens and signs to take forward into your waking time, and I would suggest you keep a pad and pencil by your bed for the next few evenings as you continue with this experiment. So you start 4 months ago, you look around, you ask your higher self or your guardian angel or your totem animal, or it all depends on how the metaphysical wires are wound around the coils of your imagination and your own psychology. Remember, tarot in general is a connection with your own higher self, and the spirit world in however you take that to mean in your life. Now, this one, I would take this timing period of 4 months ago is probably more important than the 7 months ago, which would be an alternative landing pad for another adventure in the dream time doing lucid dreaming. The card itself has to do with having many choices in front of you and having more than one correct answer at this time. So that can be your guide, but this is 7 months ago. Now, that's your time travel experiment or assignment, however you want to look at it. But we can also see these as projecting time periods into the future. This would be 4 months in the future, less 2 days. So it's 2 days into a 4-month period. This would be 1 day into a 7-month period. And now, other timing elements. Now, starting from today, this is 4 days in the future, starting from the instant that card hit the grounding cloth. This would be 5 days in the future, starting, again, from now, from the time that card hit the grounding cloth for the first time. So there's 4 or 5 days that you need to pay more than the usual attention, as they sometimes say. Get your rest is what this one is saying, and do your evaluation here, including self-evaluation, and then just understand that in the next 5 days you may be learning some tough lessons. Some of them may be easier to swallow than others. This card now starts with tomorrow, and it goes 8 days in the future. So this is 8 days in the future starting tomorrow. This is 7 weeks in the future starting day after tomorrow. This is 9 days in the future, again, starting day after tomorrow. And this is 1 calendar month in the future, starting day after tomorrow. This card specifically also has a bonus timing element, if you want to call it that, of 9 days followed by 19 days for a total of 28 days. So it is actually the card of 3 different time periods, all starting, and some of them, and all overlapping, at least for the first 9 days, starting day after tomorrow. So keep on a lookout starting day after tomorrow for that 9-day period and see what happens in your life during that time. And then for 19 days, and remember that that will then be a total of 28 calendar days. Okay, so now we've done the timing elements. And you can look at this and see how each one of these timing elements may relate to your life in the past, having gotten to the point where you're at with whatever losses in your life you have. This is telling you be sure and learn from what you have, the experiences you've had in the past. This is telling you that all of the nightmares may not be over yet, and that's good to know so that you can brace yourself. But this is saying you have some advantage out there, and others see that too. So be sure and continue to look for that. Now we're going to go through the steps of the archetypical elements, as maybe Carl Jung might say. So the tarot uses the archetypical elements of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, and we'll go through in that order. And remember, sometimes the things you do not see in a reading are just as important or more so than what you do see in a reading. So earth would be pentacles, and guess what? I do not see a single pentacle. And pentacles or earth is the element element of keeping focused in physical reality and all of the resources necessary to do so. It's also about where your next meal is coming from. All right, so nothing in the category of earth. That can also mean that you've got that covered, and so the tarot is not needing to comment on the category of earth at this time. Air would be those thorny issues that if you can think your way out of a wet paper bag using an imaginary sword or swords that a skinny old man with a pointy hat and beard gave you, you'll have no trouble whatsoever. And it looks like we've got 10, 20, 30% of the reading falls into the category of air. So, and it's all right here and now for the most part, and then moving forward for the next few days that you'll have, up to a month, that you'll have to really mind your P's and Q's about what you put out there in the universe. Be sure and do lots of thinking before acting or talking. And I'm talking to myself just as much as I am anyone else, because a wise old reader once told me, she said, if you're paying attention to the cards that are in front of you on your table as you're doing readings for others, then you are getting your reading. So anyway, air is 40%, 10, 20, 30, 40. Much easier for me to do statistics as someone who only made a C in Stat 111 in college, if I just keep it to the main 10 cards of the reading. This one is not consulted as far as statistical analysis or timing, the hidden position. Fire, moving right along. Fire is represented by wands, and it looks like 10% of the reading now falls into the category of fire, which is creativity, and it's that spark of energy that gets you up and out of bed in the morning to do what you do, whatever that is. So 10% of your life right now falls into that category. It also covers issues like business. So this could be interpreted as saying that others see that you have the advantage as far as either teaching some creative skill or business or some combination of the two. Something for you to keep forward, or keep forward in your mind, moving forward in time as you work your way through the issues of severe loss and planning for the future. It looks like the cards are saying, give yourself the next few days to do some thinking and planning and reading and to prepare yourself. Now, earth, air, fire, water would be the next, and there's 10, 20, 30% of the reading is water. Now, this relates to your own psychic ability and also your emotions. So it's not saying keep your emotions in check, but it is saying stay balanced when it comes to your emotions and your processing of any loss in your life at this time. Now, spirit is represented by major arcana, and we see 10, 20% of your life right now is completely beyond your control. That's not a huge amount. But the good news is that the angels are comping you that 20%. And furthermore, I'd say, well done so far, whatever adventures you've had, even though you've suffered a loss, it's certainly to your credit karmically, and what you do from here on out is more important than how you got into the mess you're in now. Let's put it that way. Now, as far as clues, looking at how to move forward to maybe rebuild a ruined financial empire or a ruined life, well, part of that is going to have to come from your own heart and your own thinking and musing. But you can, while you're doing your meditation and while you're doing your lucid dreaming work, you can give yourself the suggestion that any of these figures in these cards can speak to you in your dreams. Don't worry, it's not from Satan the devil necessarily. It's more like rigging an idiot light up in your subconscious so that your higher self can get in contact with you and better communicate. So moving forward, what do I see? Well, first, a period of contemplation and reevaluation. What resources do you still have? What resources will you need moving forward? This is saying perhaps that even though going forward there are many good choices and more than one right answer, that perhaps in the past you stumbled on some choices that were not necessarily the best. So that would be definitely a warning to cease that particular behavior. This is saying whatever you're not seeing, you need to be finding it, and looking into the tarot is one way to get that blindfold off, but there are other ways. This is telling you, of course, reevaluate your relationship to tradition. It may be that you'll have to think outside of all sorts of boxes to move forward. This is saying, though, that you have skills that you can teach. This is saying don't worry about the illusions, just identify them and release them into the universe. And this is saying don't give up hope. The Holy Grail, whatever you define the Holy Grail as, is out there for you. For me, if I had $1 million, it'd be 6 goats and 6 chickens on 6 acres, about 6 miles from the nearest paved road. So we all have our own ideas of what the best is in the future. And as a general summary then, it looks like get your rest, learn your lessons is in order, do your evaluation, get grounded with a tree, make sure you do your dream work, both waking and sleeping dream. Both of these kind of speak to that. This is reminding you that there are correct answers out there, and even though you have a better chance of picking right answers now, both because of your experiential background and because of what you've just recently gone through, the universe is saying, well, you've finished this cycle of unpleasantness and you can move forward as soon as you can see that the way forward is right in front of you. So that's pretty much your cutesy pie summary for the day. This has been your 11:11 a.m. Wake up and smell the tarot. Instant tarot, add your own question. And today we focused on recovering from severe loss. And as a quick summary, you may have made some unpleasant choices in the past that need not affect you moving forward, except that you remove the blinders, you look up around you, and you make sure that you're making better choices in the future. I am available for private readings, and will be doing some. I can schedule a few readings during a week, and it's best that you contact me for any private reading that you would like. I always work for tips. And so, for now, many bright blessings. This has been John the Grey Tarot Wizard, broadcasting from the Invisible Cottage near Muggleville in Mundania, along with Mojo, my psychic guard cat, hard at work patrolling the halls of the Akashic Record, at least in his own imagination, saying goodbye and many blessings. This link will be up on the Tarot Reading Wizard service, no longer live video, just as soon as I can get it up there. Bye-bye for now. The next broadcast will be at 1:11 p.m. Muggle Daylight Time, or as we say in the Rocky Mountains, Mountain Daylight Time, 1:11 p.m. today. Bye-bye, and thanks for all the tips.